The church for many, many years has assumed that if you needed to know Jesus, that you would somehow or another find your way within the context of the building, inside the walls, and that's where the magic would take place. Somehow or another, you'd hear the word being preached, and your heart would be convicted, and you'd give your life to Christ and become one of the guys. Well, it doesn't really work that way anymore. Most people who don't know Jesus don't want to darken the doors of the church. It's a little weird, it's a little uncomfortable, it's not normal, not natural. They don't really quite know who we are, what we do. And so the idea of grabbing people and bringing them to church so they might get saved is an idea that doesn't work so well. But I'll tell you what does work well. It's becoming a church that has huge off-ramps. Rather than a church that's all on-ramps where everybody just comes to us and we bring them to us and make them part of our community. Instead, if we think of the church as a group of people who gather together to worship, gather together to learn and be inspired and be motivated, and then the church vacates the building. Because, of course, as we know, the building is not the church. And then the church leaves the building with many, many, many off-ramps. Off-ramps going every direction out into the community, into schools, into workplaces, into places where people live and breathe and talk and have their regular life. If the church ends up in those places, then I think we're doing our job. Because I don't think it's up to us to be bringing more people within the church or into the church building, but it's our job to get more of the church into other people's lives, into other places. And if we begin to think of ourselves as a church that is trying to build off-ramps rather than build on-ramps, and sure, there'll always be a few on-ramps, but if we are really an off-ramp church, that makes a whole lot of difference in how we think about things, what we choose to do, what we choose to invest our money in. We become an off-ramp church that most of the life of the church is spent out where we really belong, in the world, not being of it, but in it, taking the good news of Jesus to people like he designed us to do.